There was a lot of refineries everywhere. We couldn't swim in the water like we could in Australia. We couldn't go fishing like we could in Australia. There were signs about toxic spills. There were signs about don't swim here, don't fish here. That was really a disconnect. I went off into my own world and started experimenting with nature. My high school science project, I decided to test the local waterways. And the test results came back with lead, mercury, things that were not supposed to be in the waterways. The project went to state, and one of the judges said, I'm tempted to disqualify you. I said, why? And he said, well, I work for the Environmental Protection Agency, and we've done all of these tests. And your results are completely off. And it would only be later that I would learn that the Environmental Protection Agency of Louisiana gets 90% of its funding from permits issued to oil companies. The agency that is supposed to be protecting the people is funded by the industry it's supposed to protect people from.
God didn't give Louisiana white beaches like he gave Florida. He didn't give us mountains like he gave Colorado. He gave us dead dinosaurs. He gave us a Jurassic Park of oil and gas from which we've built a huge refining and manufacturing industry.
Louisiana actually produces more gasoline than any other state in the nation. We have 150 petrochemical facilities in a 100-mile area. The refineries heat crude oil in distillation towers. Oil vapors condense along the sides, splitting into a variety of products, like diesel fuel and gasoline. The leftover toxic chemicals turn the surrounding air and soil into what the EPA calls the fallout area.
Well, when you drive along the highway, all you see is something that looks sort of like the Emerald City. You see all these towers and columns and tanks, and the whole purpose is to manufacture chemicals that are building blocks that are used for other manufacturing processes, as well as finished products like gasoline, jet fuel.
Plastics, chlorine, ammonia, nitrates, fertilizers, PVC. But there's a third fraction of the oil barrel. That third fraction is waste, usually toxic waste. There's only 3 ways to get rid of it. You can burn it, you can dump it on land, or you can dump it in water. And so for the last 70 years, the oil companies in Louisiana have been doing all 3.
Growing up in Louisiana, in history class, everyone watches a film called The Louisiana Story. It shows the story of a young Cajun boy and his Cajun family, and an oil derrick moves in. And the oil people are friendly, they give them money, they hit a gusher, they cap the well, and then they leave the place almost better than they found it.
One little detail that we were never told. The film was funded, paid for, by Standard Oil. It was like Standard Oil's first public cover-up.
They were going into Louisiana, ripping the bayous open, and creating a toxic cesspool.
I remember driving back from New Orleans. We'd pass these long stretches, and I'd just see these horrible fires and these thick, ominous-looking clouds of smoke for miles. The stench was terrible.
One of the ways that the petrochemical companies get away with releasing more emissions of chemicals and byproducts and waste products into the environment than they're actually permitted to do is that they have these little accidents. And sometimes they're not so little. Sometimes the accidents are great big and there's huge explosions. They ask people around here to run inside their homes, close their doors and windows, and try to seal them up with tape.
Our community is surrounded by 11 petrochemical plants, a hazardous waste facility, and a Superfund site. As a consequence, our entire swamp, as well as the community, became polluted. And this pollution bioaccumulated in the organisms, so that when people ate fish, they were eating contaminated fish. This has been documented by EPA.
When you take a look at the local emergency planning committee's records of these accidents, There are between 200 and 300 a year.
We have studies after studies after studies that were just never published.
This is a cover-up in your opinion?
It's a cover-up in their opinion. Facts about working with PVC. PVC is a non-hazardous material made from vinyl chloride monomer. VCM exposure is virtually non-existent. I didn't plant this here. I mean, this is just happens to be what's here. PVC dust is non-toxic. These are all the things that they send to the folks who are working out in the field. There are documents in here that say if we don't tell what we know, it could be construed as evidence of an illegal conspiracy on the part of industry to withhold vital information from the government.
1988. I'm sitting on the foot of my mother's bed. She's sick. On the news comes a breaking report of a Greenpeace protest, and the banners read, Cancer Alley. This section of land in Louisiana has the highest number of cancer incidents in the United States. He said people are sick, people are dying in this state, and it's because of oil processing. People ask me why I do what I do. Do I tell them the truth? Do I tell them that I grew up hating oil companies? Do I tell them that that hatred was what fueled me? Everywhere that oil is processed, this happens. There's a cancer alley in New Jersey. There's a cancer alley in California. There's a cancer alley in Nigeria. Those people suffer just as much.
Packing more than 140-mile-an-hour winds, Katrina ripped through the Gulf Coast.
I called my family and they said, we're walking out of the house and we don't know if we'll be back. And then the lines went dead.
9 million gallons of toxic oil spread into the bayous and the rivers and the swamps. All of it crude oil, all of it from the oil industry. None of it was reported by the media. That's a spill as big as the Exxon Valdez.
Here's the tragedy. They never paid that bill. They've never acknowledged their responsibility, nor has any state official ever mentioned it, nor has the federal delegation ever mentioned it.
The petrochemical industry is king in Louisiana, and it can do no wrong. They've convinced all of government that the Louisiana government simply cannot exist without the petrochemical industry.
And so we're now in the position of asking the American taxpayer to restore coastal Louisiana while the wealthiest corporations in the world, they're getting off scot-free. They're not paying a dime. The fact that Katrina was intolerable was largely oil industry made.
We know the Gulf of Mexico has gotten much warmer in the last 50 years. And when you have warmer water, you get more intense storms.
Hurricane Katrina, when it was passing Florida, was a stage 1 category hurricane. And when it hit the abnormally warm oceans of the Gulf of Mexico, it turned into a stage 5 hurricane.
As the Earth heats up, more water evaporates, and the atmosphere becomes moister. And this moisture in the atmosphere fuels hurricanes. And so hurricanes are expected to get more intense with global warming.
Of all the states in the United States, Louisiana stands to lose the most from global warming. It's like we're right in the middle of the target.
The causes of global warming are the human use of energy. 80% of that energy comes from carbon dioxide producing fuels, oil and coal and natural gas. It's the hot car effect. The glass, like these gases, lets sunlight in, but it won't let the radiant heat back out. And so it gets warmer. And if we burn all the coal and all the oil and gasoline and everything we possibly can, the ultimate sea level rise could be about 21 feet. And 21 feet is just beyond what anybody can imagine. 10 feet is beyond what anybody can imagine.